And what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video today of Curry Tech, and today we'll be going over AMD's new graphics card, the RX 6000 series. But before we get into that, I just want to go over another new GPU that you guys probably haven't heard of. As of right now, AMD has two architectures, one called RDNA for gaming, and one is called CDNA, which is compute, or for computing slash enterprise types of workloads. And you know how NVIDIA has those high-end graphics cards for enterprise and FP32, FP64, and teraflops and all of that. AMD just announced its Instinct M100, which claims to be the world's fastest HPC GPU. Now, if you thought Big Navi was big, this is bigger than Big Navi, which is the 6900 XT. Then the M100 comes with a whopping 122 compute units, which in terms of conversion goes to 6080 stream processors, which is really huge for NVIDIA. But if you guys are wondering, can you game on this? Like, no, you can't game because it's using the CDNA architecture, so it's optimized only for computing workloads and crushing all those like computing benchmarks like for servers and things like that. So unfortunately, it's not, you can't game on it. At least that's what I've heard. And I just want to go over that, just kind of news that came out and over the couple of days. I'll show a picture of it on the screen right now, showing all the teraflops, you know, in FP64, FP32, and it actually trades blows with NVIDIA's new enterprise GPUs. So, but there's still a long way to come with these. But anyway, let's get on with this. The RX 6000 series graphics cards just came out today, and from all the reviews I've seen of it, it's kind of like a mixed review because to me it was like I predicted that NVIDIA is still going to have the best in ray tracing performance. In terms of actual FPS gaming, both cards are very well. Now, sometimes AMD beats it on the NVIDIA 3000 series in maybe certain applications and games, while other times the NVIDIA one may beat it in, let's say, Minecraft. The API is different because which API you're using and what kind of technologies you have on it. Now, going over the RX 6000 series, the two cards that just launched today was the RX 6800 and the RX 6800 XT. And going over that, um, overall, I really like the cards. I don't. It's hard to recommend them when the NVIDIA side has second generation ray tracing. Now, before we go into ray tracing performance, overall FPS is about the same overall. Now, the RTX 3070 versus the RX 6800 is kind of like there's a price difference of 500 to 579. And what kind of determines that price difference to me is overall packaging. Because with AMD, right now they're using first generation ray tracing, which is called Ray Accelerator, while NVIDIA side not only has RT cores and Tensor cores and AI, but also they have the equivalent of DLSS 2.0. Wow, I cannot say that still. But DLSS 2.0 is basically the newer version of DLSS for ray tracing. And what ray tracing did before DLSS was that when you turn ray tracing on, you would see dips in performance. So let's say you're playing a game and you're averaging 100 FPS, 120 FPS. But when you turn ray tracing on, your performance would just drop to like 70, 60, and people were getting annoyed by that. This is with the adoption of ray tracing, which is technically just math. Ray tracing is not branded by NVIDIA, by the way. But ray tracing is math to show shadows and textures and reflect actual light from an image on your screen. And what DLSS does, well, I cannot say it still, is it renders an image like your screen. Let's say you're playing at 1440p and renders it down to a lower resolution, 1080p. And what DLSS does with the AI and RT tensor cores, the ray tracing cores and tensor cores, is it upscales it to that 1440p resolution. So the difference between 1440 native and 1440p DLSS is not the biggest in terms of changes. It may actually, DLSS 1440p may actually look better than 1440p native, but there's also significant drawbacks in terms of how the image looks. But overall, DLSS 2.0 on NVIDIA's side has done it wonders, overall boosting the performance from last generation RTX cards, which is amazing. The overall package on AMD's side is that it can game. It can game against the 3000 series. It can beat an FPS in certain titles. But what it lacks is the features of the DLSS 2.0 or something like that kind of technology. Because yeah, they have this is first generation ray tracing, right? And they're gonna go through the same thing like Nvidia did. It's not gonna be good at the beginning. Let's let's say Nvidia heavily games like Minecraft. Minecraft is more optimized for Nvidia's ray tracing, and as we saw in benchmarks, or I saw in benchmarks, the RX 6000 series with the ray tracing arm was getting around 16 FPS in games, or 20 FPS, compared to Nvidia's 80 FPS, 90 FPS, because of that DLSS 2.0. And AMD is actually coming out with a feature like that, but they're very kind of lackluster about it. Like they're saying, "Oh, you don't need that." But if you're a person that wants ray tracing, and ray tracing is now becoming a bigger and bigger thing by the day now. Just seeing those textures and actual light in an image is becoming a bigger thing for people. Sometimes most people don't want it, but other people do. They want the game to look the best as possible for what they paid for, right? And overall, going from art, I can't really these cards are really good. If you want to go out and buy one, you can try and get one, but right now they're all sold out most likely. It's the same deal with the Nvidia launch, unfortunately. But until AMD comes out with its Fidelity or DLSS equivalent, ray tracing performance on the RX 6000 series is going to be really lackluster compared to a 3000 series GPU. And if I'm talking about overall packaging, I say I'm still going with NVIDIA's RTX 3000 series, no matter how you put AMD's card. The RX 6000 series is great. It's second generation RDNA 2. If we're following the roadmap like Ryzen, this hasn't taken the biggest hit against NVIDIA. NVIDIA took a little bit of a hit, but isn't that big compared to what Ryzen CPUs did to Intel second generation. So hopefully by third generation, we can see massive improvements in ray tracing performance, stream processors, and even gigahertz boost. I will say, if the RX 6000 series can actually boost game clock to 2.5 gigahertz compared to NVIDIA's 1.9 gigahertz because of the capacitors and also the Infinity Cache, which plays a big factor into it. And if you're looking into those crazy clock speeds and world records, then yeah, this 6000 series GPU is great for overclocking in terms of game performance. But if we're talking about an overall consumer package that has all the features, is a great software, you want to stream as well, edit, NVIDIA has it all. Right now, NVIDIA has it all. Um, the 6000 series still has a long way to come, so maybe down the line they do AMD introduces a new DLSS kind of equivalent and improves the GPU even further. But as of right now, I say NVIDIA still has come up on top in terms of overall. In certain areas, yeah, they do lose to the 6000 series. But in terms of pricing, I would rather get an RTX 3070, which is overall um, more of a beast in terms of kind of brute forcing its way with cores and tensor cores, but also for kind of like the software side thing, streaming. Let's say you want to stream on it. It has a great streaming features, encoding as well. I believe it's called NV Coder, and it's just great for streaming if you're into that. Video editing. If you want something that can brute force, that's definitely something that you would want. And if you're comparing an RTX 3070 to an RX 6800, it's just, I don't see the $80 difference. I just can't seem to pay $80 more for a card that I feel like is better overall, the RTX 3070, than the RX 6800. That's just my thoughts on this. The 6000 series didn't make a punch, it was more like a little like, oh, tap. You know, it's a little tap to Nvidia. Um, they still have a long way to come. Even against the RTX 3080, the 6000 series does keep up in gaming. That's right, I'll give them that. It's great for gaming. Both cards are great for gaming. But in terms of overall, I mean, you gotta go with Nvidia. It's a kind of a no-brainer. Oh, sorry about the light. I think something came. Yep, there. And I was kind of expecting a little bit more from Nvidia. I mean, not Nvidia, AMD. Just in terms of ray tracing support. I mean, I know this is first generation ray tracing, which I did predict will be bad, but I didn't expect it to be this bad. And that's because Nvidia has worked really hard on this DLSS, and without DLSS, the ray tracing would not even be a thing, really, because without it, it looks trash. You're getting 60 FPS in terms of actual 200 FPS. I mean, which one do you want? And that's what ray tracing did before DLSS. And I don't know, man, very tough. It's just you want to recommend it, but I can't. You know, it's just something holding me back. Because if I just told someone, oh, get the RX 6000 series, I would not feel that good about myself because I just don't see it as an overall great kind of GPU. Like, the RX 6000 series has its 2.5 gigahertz, but and kind of FPS games, but in ray tracing it just falls flat. Um, but AMD has caught up in terms of FPS. Now I'm looking for the third generation, hopefully coming out in like a year or so, or 2 years, and they just put some amazing product out. So it's same with Nvidia as well. And anyway, now actually is reported that the RX 6000 series 6800 can actually reach 2.5 gigahertz. And if you're all wondering, well, how did they do that? Basically, the rundown of it was, as I was watching Jay2Sen's video 2 days before the embargo, he showed the back side of the capacitors, where the capacitors are shown on the back of the card. And what I saw, or what he said was, there was a I saw a big stack of MLCC capacitors, which would make sense, because if you're reaching 2.5 gigahertz, POS caps, or the lower end ones, aren't really good for filtering out at high frequencies. But MLCs, if you have a bunch of MLCs stacked on top of each other in rows and all that, it is great for higher gigahertz, higher frequencies. So that's why it's most likely able to reach 2.5 gigahertz because of noise filtration. MLCCs are expensive and easier to break, but they are amazing for filtering out the electricity noise to the graphics card to reach 2.5 gigahertz. And if you're wondering, well, what is this filtering out, like electronic noise? What that means is like buzzing, like pretend you're in your room studying and your parents or sister or brother are making a bunch of noise around you. Imagine that happening to a graphics card when it's being stressed up to reach 2.5 gigahertz. You need something to block out that sound. So you might wear a headset, and that is what the capacitors are doing. It's basically doing that, but for a graphics card. And that is why the RX 6000 series can reach 2.5 gigahertz compared to NVIDIA's using only MLCs and POS caps, and also I believe there are some other issues as well in terms of driver stability. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to look at more in-depth experience in terms of reviews, go check out Jay2Sense, Linus Tech Tips, any of those guys, GamerMeld as well. Those guys are amazing. Go check them out for the reviews. They make amazing reviews. And I hope you guys learned a lot from this video. Anyway, have a great day, guys. Stay safe out there and keep on gaming. Peace out.